Today I'm out in the shop and I'm going to talk about troubleshooting and replacing the rear anti-lock brake wheel speed sensor on my 2005 F150 truck. But this information can be useful for any 2004 through 2008 Ford F150 or 2006 through 2008 Mark LT with either a V6 or a V8 engine. They have different rear ends, but this is the same rear speed sensor that's on all 2005 through 2015 SuperDuty trucks, which includes the F250, 350, F450, the 550, and the F53 trucks. The 1990 through 2003 Ford F150 uses a different part number for the wheel speed sensor, but it looks very similar to this one and is installed in the same location and in the same manner as that I'm going to show today. My sensor mounts with a 3/8 head size bolt. It seems that Ford used different head size bolts to mount this. Some used a 10 millimeter head size bolt, some like mine used a 3/8, and some used up to a 1/2 inch head size bolt on this sensor. Well, at least the 1992 through 2003 may have used the 1/2 inch head size bolt or another fastener. I've seen in some instances that there's been a Trks head on some of these, but mine has a 3/8 head size bolt. The 1990 through 2003 may use a small screwdriver to get the electrical connector off. They have the two tabs on it. It may be helpful to use a small screwdriver to get it off. Mine just has a single tab, and I'll show you that when I get under the truck. So if you're getting a low speed anti-lock brake activation, or you're just replacing the rear anti-lock brake wheel speed sensor, this video is for you. I have many other videos showing general automotive work, modifications, and tips. If you find this video helpful, consider subscribing and watching the other videos. To subscribe, just click the Stiles Automotive icon in the lower right of the screen. To replace the speed sensor, you need a suitable brush to clean it, to clean the old sensor and around on the rear end. You need either a deep well socket or an extension or a combination. I'm just going to use a 1/4 inch ratchet and a 1/4 inch deep well socket. That's 3/8 for my truck. You'll have to investigate what your truck has, but anyway, it's a single fastener, one bolt, and then dielectric grease to put on the O-ring. You'll lubricate the O-ring with it to help it slide back in, and also coat the electrical connector with it. Now that makes it so it's easy to put back together, and it keeps the moisture out of the electrical connector. You'll see when you get under the truck that this is the dirtiest place on the truck, is the top front of the differential. It's where it gets a lot of dirt and moisture. So if you're a do-it-yourselfer, the night before, wash down the rear end of your truck, wash down the frame, the rear suspension, and under the body, under the bed of your truck with water. Try to hose it off as good as you can to clean it off. Pay particular attention to that front left side or the driver's side of the differential, and try to spray all around this connector and with water. So the next morning it'll be dry. When you get ready to do the job, use an air hose, hose it off, and then use brake cleaner. The brake cleaner and a wire brush to scrub around there to get the big particles off. Now the brake cleaner also help penetrate down into this joint and help lubricate it, so it'll help it come out. Now the risk in taking this off, it seems like a simple project, it's down in a hole, but this area from the top of the sensor down to this O-ring fills up with grease and grime and salt and corrosion, and makes it hard to get out. So what you don't want to do is use a screwdriver and a hammer and try to get under here. So the orientation of this once you get under there is like this. You don't want to hit this with a hammer and try to push it out. Now that's a good technique for a lot of things. With a bearing or something, this will create a wedge, and as it pushes in, it separates, right? Gets larger, so it separates, has a tendency to push it out, to push the sensor up. That's what you want. But if you're hitting on it here, you're going to end up breaking the sensor, and you'll leave the sensor body down in the rear differential. And then how are you going to get it out? There's a couple ways. You can try to pull it out from the top, which is near impossible, or you can take the rear diff cover off and then get in there and pull it out that way. But even that way, you have to take it out in pieces, because what this does is it makes contact with a tone ring. So it sits in there like this, or this rather, in your differential. And every time this tone ring moves, each one of these little tabs, each one of those little gears pulses on your speed sensor. So that is not making contact. This is magnetic. So it tells the speed of the rear end by this tone ring. So that tone ring is in the way for getting it out from the inside. So I don't know. I've never broken one off, but I don't hit on it with a screwdriver. What you want to do is try to turn it and pull it out, and use a pair of pliers. If you can get under it and pry it, not hit, not push on it, but pull it out, that is ideal. As far as troubleshooting, for my sensor, I've recently serviced the rear end on my truck. I've replaced the gear lube on my rear end and serviced the rear end. Now, what I think has either happened with mine is I either cleaned off the sensor and now it's not getting as close to the tone ring. So there's usually, this is magnetic, so debris will collect to this, particles will collect to it. So I think either I'm not getting the strong enough pulse because I cleaned it off, or for some reason maybe it's I haven't cleaned it off well enough when I sprayed it out on the inside of my rear differential. And now there's more particles on here, which is causing that low speed problem. Low speed activation of my anti-lock brakes. So when I first start out in the morning, when the system is cold and I'm just moving in my driveway and I use the brakes for the first time at the end of the driveway, my anti-lock brakes pulse. And they really don't any other time. I can't get it to do it at any other time except that low speed maneuver that I've done, and I'm below 10 miles an hour. Now the way to check that is use a scan tool, and I have a scan tool that can trend your speed sensors. So in my truck, the 2005 F150 has 3 speed sensors, one in each of the front 2 wheels, and then the third one in the rear differential for its anti-lock brakes. And you can trend and drive the truck and trend which one is causing a problem. You can see it drop off around the 10 mile an hour, 15 mile an hour point. In my truck, I've shown in other videos that I have that Super Chips programmer, and I use that as a code reader. That won't work. That won't trend any of the variables that you need to look at. You need a scan tool to do that is able to trend. And years ago, many years ago, when OBD2 was first coming out, no, that tells my age, a long time ago, I bought a Sony Palm Pilot that has a program in it that can do that, that can trend the different variables. A very useful tool. But like I say, in my case, I've just serviced the rear end, so I'm pretty sure it's just that rear sensor. And this one's really very inexpensive at Rock Auto. Rock Auto did not have the Motorcraft sensor, which I'm disappointed in. So this is an off-brand sensor that I got from them. And but Rock Auto is a great source for the do-it-yourselfer. Now this is what the sensor looks like underneath the truck. If you're looking from the left side of the truck or the driver's side of the truck up at the sensor. Now I've put my truck on jack stands under the frame, and so I've suspended it under the frame so that the wheels are down, so I get more clearance, so I can take a better picture and go under the drive shaft. This is a view from the right hand side of the passenger side to the sensor, and I'll try to get you a better view while I'm taking it out. But that's where it's located, the driver's side or the left hand side of the rear differential in the front. And notice mine has the 2 tabs to protect it here. And this is again a 2005 F150 four-wheel drive. So other differentials are similar. They just have a hole in the differential where the tone ring is located. So the electrical connector right here just has a tab on the side. So push that tab and pull the electrical connector. Try not to pull it by the wires. There it is. Now when I did the rear brake hoses, I rewrapped my cable. I took it out of the protector here and rewrapped it with electrical tape. So I made sure my two wires looked okay when I did my rear brake lines. And because this cable, more than probably any other one, gets a lot of flex whenever the rear end moves for this electrical connector. So that might also be an issue. If you have an intermittent problem, you want to look for breaks in those wires. They take a lot of abuse. I'm going to tuck it out of the way. So here's my bolt back up here on the top. I don't know if you can see that. 3/8 bolt on top here. So I'm going to blow it off with air one more time. Make sure you're wearing your safety glasses. I'm going to hit it with brake cleaner one more time. Try to scrub it around it with a wire brush. See all the junk coming off of it? And I've cleaned it once already. Hosed it down last night. More brake cleaner. One more time. 3/8 bolt. Came off pretty easy. Let's see, it looks pretty clean. You can see that, looks pretty clean. Try to pry on it a little bit. Just on the top, on that mounting location. Twist on a little bit. Yeah, she moved a little bit. Flex it back the other way. Yeah, I really don't want to hit on it with a screwdriver, like I said earlier. Just want to move it. Yeah, she moves a little bit. That's good. Now, one other tip with these, sometimes you can take them out. It's turning a lot easier. So I'm going to spray it with my brake cleaner one more time and That'll help lubricate it as I'm twisting and turning, kind of clean out that area above that O-ring. One other thing I was going to say is sometimes you can clean these off and put them back in and they'll work. That's a poor man's way of doing it. Honestly, if I'm going to take it out, I'd rather just replace it. Slowly work it back and forth. Yeah, just think about how far that O-ring was from the top of that lip. It's not very far, it doesn't have very far to go. I can get my screwdriver under it and wiggle it. So there we go. Yep. And it comes out. So you can see all the dirt and grime on top of that O-ring below the flange. Make sure you don't knock anything down in your hole. Before the new sensor goes back in, I'm gonna put dielectric grease. My cap on my dielectric grease just broke. I hate when that happens. Put dielectric grease around the O-ring here. Now there's probably other grease you could use, but I know dielectric grease is compatible with this O-ring, or any O-ring. So I'm going to use it liberally around on the flange and that O-ring, hopefully to keep the dirt and debris out of it for a while. And I'm going to use it on my electrical connector too. Again, that's going to help the electrical connector go back together easy. It's going to seat easier, and it's going to keep moisture and dirt out of that electrical connector. Probably not if you're fording deep water or anything, but and then, you know, ideally you could replace this as part of a service on your rear end when you're getting, you know, changing the lube in your rear end, so you could clean this up around here better. But I'm not going to clean up around that hole because I don't want to knock stuff down into my rear end, because I just replaced the lube on my rear end on this truck. So I'm pushing and turning, trying to get that O-ring to go down in there. And then a little anti-seize on the bolt, so it comes out the next time 213,000 miles from now. I want this bolt to come out again. trying to wiggle it to make sure it's seated all the way down in. It doesn't look like it's seated. I don't want this bolt to have to do all the work, but I guess it'll pull it all the way down in there. You shouldn't worry. Tighten it up. There. There we go. You can see that. I'm going to change the view on it one more time. Bring it over here to the driver's side. So there you go. So you can see the, you know, the gap between the autofocus will work here. Again, make sure there's dielectric grease on the electrical connector here, and I already put it on the sensor itself, so making sure that mounting location, if I took it off, make sure I put it back, but it's easier to put this together if it was off, I would suppose, but it's doable. So push it in until it clicks, so you can see my little tab wiggle there when I pushed it in and it clicked. Dielectric grease makes it slide so much easier. So then just attempt to pull it back off. It's on securely. Make sure this mounting point's okay. There's a mounting point back here on the rear of the diff cover, and then two mounting locations over here on the brake line going up. And again, I already made sure my wire protector is covered. I rewrapped it with electrical tape, and that's the same ABS sensor, the wheel speed sensor, on all F150 trucks pretty much from 1990 through 2015 on the rear axle of the heavy duty trucks and then the F150s. So depending on, you know, if you have a 1990 through 2003, it's a different part number, mounted similarly, replaced similarly, but then all 2004 through 2015 really, the SuperDuty trucks, but all 2004 through 2008 F150 trucks. Again, that's all 2004 through 2008 F150 trucks and a number of other SuperDuty trucks. Well, that concludes the video. If you found it helpful, please subscribe, and if you did, let me know in the comments.